Now welcome to the Rob Johnson Sports Show, presented by the Legacy Maker Sports Network. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Rob Johnson Sports Show here, presented by the Legacy Maker Sports Network and Rob Johnson Media, specifically Legacy Maker Sports Network. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to talk a few topics today with you guys. First topic we're going to talk is NFL 2 breakdowns, go back through the games from week 2 of the NFL. Then we're going to go to college, WNBA, and then let me make sure I have all the topics here correct. So we have the week 2 breakdowns, final breakdowns, college football predictions, WNBA playoff analysis. Then we have Ohio State against Notre Dame, who wins and why. And we'll talk about that in a second. So let's get to the NFL breakdowns, and let's get back to the games that happened this past week. Again, this is not going to be a long show, folks. We are going to try to get this thing out of the way quickly and get it out the way in a good manner. You had the Philadelphia Eagles against the Minnesota Vikings. In that game, the Minnesota Vikings did everything they could to lose the football game. Kirk Cousins, however, was excellent. He was 31 of 44, 364 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Jalen Hurts, 193, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Minnesota Vikings have to do a better job in playing defense. They have to do a better job in giving Kirk Cousins more time and giving him more of a, I feel like they just give him more time to be that productive quarterback that we know that he can be. So let's go to Sunday. Let's go to the Bears and the Buccaneers. Buccaneers win that game. Baker Mayfield has a really good game. Bears lose, go to 0-2. Packers against the Falcons. The Falcons go to 2-0 with a 25-24 win. The Colts get a win on the road in Houston, 31-20. You have the Seattle Seahawks bouncing back after that week 1 loss to the Los Angeles Rams, winning in Detroit, 37-31. Then you have the Titans, who defeated the Chargers. They barely lost to the Saints week 1, but you have the Titans, who beat the LA Chargers despite Justin Herbert having a big game. But Kellen Moore rears his ugly head once again by calling 3 deep pass plays in overtime when you need to be running the football. You have a running game. Use that running game if you're the LA Chargers. Stop trying to be so cute. The Baltimore Ravens take down the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals fall to 0-2, 27-24. The Buffalo Bills absolutely demolished the Las Vegas Raiders, 30-10. The Raiders started out really good. Jimmy Garoppolo had a good game, but next thing you know, the Raiders went all over him. Josh Allen has a huge game. Kansas City Chiefs go into Jacksonville, spoil the Jacksonville Jaguars fans' party, 17-9. The Chiefs will continue to get better. I do have concerns about the Jaguars. The 49ers go in to L.A., beat a tough Rams team 30-23. They do give up 23 points, but their defense comes around and plays opportunistic the way they need to be. What concerns me a little bit is Matt Stafford did throw for 307 yards. He had 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. You have Cooper Kupp, who is not in the fold right now. Now you have Puka Nacua, who is a player out of the University of who's out of BYU. And as we know, folks, BYU always has gems. Just ask the 49ers and their linebacker they have. Let's go down to some of the other games. The New York Giants defeat the Arizona Cardinals 31-28. The Cardinals held a huge lead at first. Saquon Barkley gets hurt once again, unfortunately. And you have the New York Giants come back behind the arm of Daniel Jones. His arm wasn't available week 1 against Dallas, but week 2 he comes through and shows why he earned a little bit of that money that he got from the New York Giants. Again, I'm not pocket watching. I don't do that. So congratulations, Daniel Jones. All players who make their money, I have no problem with it. The Dallas Cowboys defeated the New York Jets 30-10. Zach Wilson had 3 interceptions in the game. He had 1 touchdown. But other than that, Dallas dominated the game. The Washington Commanders come back from a 21-3 deficit to defeat the Denver Broncos 35-33. Russell Wilson throws a Hail Mary late, but then he can't convert on a 2-point. It was apparent either it was a pass interference or it was a holding, whichever one you want to call it, but the Broncos should have had the ball at the 1-yard line. Sean Payton continues to blame everyone but himself, because that's what Sean Payton continues to do. The Miami Dolphins escaped the New England Patriots, who have been playing some really good football early in this season. Beat them 24-17 in New England on Sunday Night Football. The Carolina Panthers go down to the New Orleans Saints in Carolina. 1 or 2 Monday night games, 20-17. Bryce Young had a decent game, but could have done things a little more differently, but the Saints didn't just enough to win the game. The Cleveland Browns were defeated by the Pittsburgh Steelers 26-22. Pittsburgh did just enough. They had 2 turnovers. They had the first interception that was tipped. It was right in tight end's hands. It flipped out of his hands, flipped in another defender's hands. Another player intercepted it, went all the way for a touchdown. The Cleveland Browns had opportunities. Nick Chubb did get hurt, but I think that the Browns will be okay here going forward, as I think that they have a lot of good things coming up for them in the season. Now, let's get to Saturday as we talk about college football. And see, this week, folks, I'm not going to really talk too much about. I'm not going to do too much talking about the all the other games. I'll do that more in the upcoming weeks, but it's just a lot of games to get to. I'll get to the top 25 games, and I'll get to the local games that we have as well that we cover here on the Legacy Maker Sports Network. We have Richmond, and these are the predictions. I'll do top 25 only, plus I'll do the local games. We have Richmond against Stony Brook. I have Richmond coming back and winning that game. Stony Brook is not a very good football team. They are 0-3. Richmond is 1-2. I have Richmond winning that game. You have Maine coming to William Mary. William Mary is 3-0. Maine is 0-3. I'm really hoping to get to that last game of the season against Richmond at William and Mary. Trying to work some things out. Haven't been to a William and Mary game yet this year, but hopefully I'll be at that last game of the season for William and Mary and Richmond to cover that for you guys, along with a few other members of the Legacy Maker Sports Network. But I have William and Mary winning that game. So what we're going to do now, folks, we're just going to go to the top 25, and we're going to do the top 25 college football teams in the top 25. I would go all FBS. Let me also say North Carolina State plays UVA. I have North Carolina State in that game. I believe that Virginia Tech is playing on Saturday as well. Let me check that. Let me go to the ACC. I'm sorry, that's the AAC. Let me go to the ACC and let me check to see if Tech is playing. Yes, Tech is playing at Marshall at noon on Saturday. Marshall's 2-0. Tech is 1-2. I got to give it to Marshall. Not really a big believer right now in Virginia Tech. So let's go to the top 25 and let's talk about the top 25 teams who are playing top 25. The next week, I'll go back to the regular where I pick every game. But this week, top 25 only. Number 20, Miami goes against Temple. I have Miami in that game. You have number 16, Oklahoma, going to Cincinnati, a 2-1 Cincinnati team who is now in the Big 12. They lost to Pittsburgh 27-21. They beat Eastern Kentucky 66-13. I have to give that to Oklahoma. Now let's talk about Florida State and Clemson. This is a noon game. Usually when you talk about Clemson, people think it's just, Death Valley, night games. It's still very hard to play in Death Valley, even at noon. But I'm going to give it to Florida State. You have Rutgers and Michigan. This is an interesting game. I haven't seen Michigan really play anybody. Neither has Rutgers. However, I think that Rutgers has been a pretty decent team so far this year. They dominated Northwestern. They dominated Temple. They beat Virginia Tech 35-16, which was an old Big East rival. Do I think that Michigan is going to lose this game? No. Do I think Rutgers is going to send a message against the Michigan Wolverines? Yes, I do. And I think Michigan needs to be very careful. This is a high noon game. Rutgers is improving year by year. Be very careful if you are playing Rutgers. The Scarlet Knights could shock the Michigan Wolverines on Saturday. Could be. Now you have Ole Miss against Alabama. This is a tough one because a lot of people are expecting Alabama to get beaten this game by the way they looked last week. It ain't going to happen. Jalen, we got Milroe who is back. He is the best quarterback for this team. He has the tools to do everything this team needs. Nick Saban, keep him in the fold. Don't take him out. He is the player for you. And I don't think that Ole Miss has what it takes to beat Alabama at Alabama. They're not losing 2 straight at that stadium at all. That's not happening on Nick Saban, in my opinion. Alabama takes this game. You have Colorado and Oregon. I think people forget this is not the same Oregon, right? When you look at Oregon and you look at their season so far, they are 3-0, and I get it. Colorado's only played, Nebraska, they played TCU. But TCU was ranked at the time. They beat Colorado State. Colorado State is a hell of a team. I think they lost to Washington State, but but Washington State also has a really good offense. You look at Oregon; they beat Portland State 81-7. Texas Tech 38-30. You play Hawaii. Hawaii is not a good football team this year, folks. Hawaii is 1-3 on the season. They really haven't played anybody. You lose to Stanford. They beat Albany. They beat Albany. That's all. They beat Albany. I mean, it's Albany. Come on now. I mean, this is Oregon's first real test as well. And I think that the counter here is a lot of people think because Travis Hunter is going to be out, that's going to help Oregon win this game easily. I think it's the opposite, folks. I think by having Travis Hunter out, you really don't know what Colorado is going to bring to the table. You don't know what Coach Prime has cooked up. I have Colorado going into Oregon, winning this football game, and I think it's going to shock a lot of people, but I'm just not that big of a believer in Oregon, especially after I saw that Texas Tech game at Texas Tech. Now, we have Duke and UConn. Duke by a mile. UCLA at Utah. This is going to be another interesting game. Now, you have Utah, who beat Florida. Florida is now in the top 25. So whatever happens with Florida is only going to help Utah. Utah went to Baylor, they lost to Texas State. They only won by 7. College football is hard this year, folks. They beat Weber State last week. You look at UCLA, they're 3-0. A lot of these teams really haven't played anyone yet. I will say that San Diego State is a decent opponent that UCLA beat, and they beat Coastal Carolina, who has been around. So, again, I'm going to give it to UCLA on the road. I think the UCLA Bruins are going to go into Utah, and they're going to beat the Utes in an upset. Then you have University of Texas San Antonio against Tennessee. Tennessee is going to be looking to get back. They're going to destroy these guys. Arkansas at LSU. Florida against the Charlotte 49ers. I give it to Florida. I would try to give Charlotte a little bit of credit, but Charlotte has not been as good as they have been in the past. This is where it gets interesting. This is where it gets very interesting. Oregon State and Washington State. This is the test for Oregon State. If Oregon State if they go into Washington State and they beat Washington State in Washington State with that offense, with that explosive team, woo! Boy, oh boy, we're gonna have to start talking about Oregon as a real contender to get into that top 10, maybe top 6, because going on the road and beating the Cougars in Washington State, that's huge, man. And Oregon State right now, they really, again, haven't played much of opponents, but they've looked impressive with the quarterback position. They've looked impressive on defense, so we'll see how that goes. This is a trap game. 7:30 start. It's going to be on ABC, and strange things happen on ABC after about 7:30. Texas has to go on the road to Baylor. Again, Baylor's 1-2. We get that. They lost to Texas State. We get that. They lost to Utah, who's ranked. We get that. They beat NIU. We get that. But Baylor is a type of team that can sometimes rise to the occasion at the right time. You're talking about Ewers. Ewers for Texas, he can sometimes get the injury bug. Texas can sometimes play down to the competition. Texas has to come into Baylor, and they have to destroy them early. Texas cannot play around with Baylor. If you play with Baylor, they're going to upset you. Texas right now is the number 3 team in the nation. And after watching Bama last week, we have to see what Bama's going to look like this week, because really, is Bama that good? We're going to see. This is a road test. This is a true road test. This isn't Alabama where there's all the hype. No, you're playing on ABC against an in-state rival who wants to do nothing more than to take down the team that is going to the SEC next year. So they got to be very, very careful. Then you got UAB against Georgia. Georgia's going to come out and they're going to smoke them. All right, we'll talk about, in fact, we were going to talk about Notre Dame and Ohio State, and this is one of the feature games. I'll bring this topic up now, because I wasn't going to make it a feature topic, but we'll just bring this topic up now. When you talk about Ohio State, and this is the feature game of the weekend, folks, whether people like it or not, this is the feature game of the week. Let's go through the statistics here, folks. if I can bring it up. When you talk about the Ohio State Buckeyes, you talk about Kyle McCord. He has 3 touchdowns on the yes, not 3 touchdowns, but he has on the season. He has. Let me make sure I have it correct. 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and how many yards does he have? His yards should come up. He has 497 yards passing on the season. Marvin Harrison Jr. He has 2 touchdowns on the season, leading the team. Playing a very good season so far. He's got 9 receptions so far. When you look at the rushing, Travion Henderson out of Hopewell, who was complete legend when it comes to this area, 17 carries, 103 yards on the season with 2 touchdowns. Ohio State really hasn't to do much in their first couple of games. If we go through their games, Ohio State, they beat Indiana, they beat Youngstown State, they beat Western Kentucky. Everything has pretty much been on the road. At home, except for Indiana. They got to go to Notre Dame. Notre Dame is 4-0. And you look at Notre Dame's game so far, Tennessee State, NC State. I will say this, that NC State win 45-24 was impressive. You beat Central Michigan, who Central Michigan usually plays really good football. So you can't say that Central Michigan is a poor program. They usually are a really good program. So you're looking at Ohio State, you're looking at Notre Dame. Again, this is the marquee matchup of the weekend. And then you go to Notre Dame, you look at their player stats, and you look at Sam Hartman. My God, he has 1,061 yards, 13 touchdowns, 0 interceptions so far on the season, playing really good football. You look at their leading receiver, that is Jaden Thomas. Make sure I get this. 12 receptions, 188 yards, 1 touchdown. You also have Jaden Greathouse, who has 3 touchdowns on the season, 10 catches, 126 yards. This Notre Dame team, and I can't believe I'm saying this Notre Dame team has weapons. This Notre Dame team is probably one of the most dangerous Notre Dame teams we've seen since they won the national championship back in the day. Folks, Ohio State is in trouble. I picked Ohio State to get to the national championship, but they're in trouble. They got to make sure they come out. This is going to be a physical football game. And again, this is probably one of the bigger tests for both teams. Even though Ohio State played Indiana, who was an in-conference opponent, this is going to be a very hard-hitting football game. Now, people want to talk about the history. Let's go through the history, because with everything, there's always history. Let's go through the history of these college football teams. Notre Dame, wrong graphic, sorry about that. We're going to go back and see. Through the years, their first meeting was 1935. Notre Dame won 18-13. 1936, Ohio State lost 7-2 in a baseball score. And they didn't play again until 1995. 1995, that's what? Do a quick math here. That's what? 4 years plus 50, that's 54. That's almost 59 years. That's 59 years that they didn't play each other. Ohio State beat Notre Dame in 1995, 45-26. And then you look at in 1996, if that's the next graphic we're going to go to. Did I have it right? Yeah. In 1996, Ohio State beat Notre Dame 29-16. And then from there, that was 96. You go to 2005. They started playing in 05. Ohio State beat Notre Dame 34-20 in the Fiesta Bowl. And then in 2015, Ohio State beat Notre Dame again 44-28. And then last year's game, Ohio State beat Notre Dame 21-10. Now, mind you, everyone, that game last year, 21-10, everybody was expecting Ohio State to beat Notre Dame down. They didn't beat them down. Notre Dame has Sam Hartman. He is a Heisman contender. I'm not saying he's under the radar as far as a contender, but I think that after this game, you got a good chance, if you are Notre Dame, to really plant your flag and say, look, we beat the number 6 team in the nation. We are amongst the nation's best. Next week, they got to go to Duke. So Duke is a really good football team. So this is a big week for Notre Dame, for Duke, for a couple of teams, especially Duke, because you think about it. You beat Notre Dame. You go to Duke next week and Duke beats Notre Dame, they automatically go to the top 10. And who the hell out there really had Duke in the top 10 before the season started? And then they got a really tough schedule down the stretch. You got a good play against USC. You got to go to Clemson. And I don't give a care what Clemson's record is. That game against Clemson is in November. It's on a Saturday. Which all the games are, but more than likely it's going to be a night game. So if you're Notre Dame, you've got to take care of business if you want to get back to that top echelon of college football. Mind you, when you've gotten back to that top tier, you've had to deal with top teams like Alabama, with LSU's, Ohio State, etc. Folks, and I understand they probably would have to deal with a Georgia, but there's no guarantee they got to deal with Georgia. College football, ladies and gentlemen, is wide the hell open. It's wide open this year. There are about 10, 12 teams that have a chance to get into that top four. I would say possibly even maybe 15 have a chance to get into that top four. So for this game, I'm going to pick Notre Dame to beat Ohio State at home. Next game, we have Iowa against Penn State. I think the rise for Penn State will continue. They will beat Iowa at home. That is a 7:30 game. North Carolina against Pittsburgh. I will say this. Pittsburgh, they beat Wofford. They lost to Cincinnati. They lost to West Virginia. North Carolina, do not take the Pitt Panthers lightly, because when you take the Pitt Panthers lightly, they usually come up with an upset. So you got to be very careful if you're North Carolina. But I have Carolina in that game. Washington against California, I've got Washington easily. USC going to Arizona State. Historically, when USC goes to Arizona State, it's always a tough game, right? It's always a tough game. They're coming off the embarrassing loss. I'm not going to say embarrassing because really Fresno State should be in the Pac-12. Fresno State should have been in the Pac-12 15, 20 years ago, in my opinion. I think that's opinion of a lot of people. Ask anybody in the Pac-12. Do I think that USC is going to win this game? Yes. Do I think that Arizona State's going to come out like gangbusters? Because, hey, this is USC. They're leaving the conference after this year. Basically, we want to do something that is going to make an impact. Yes, I think it will actually be close in the first half, which will hurt some of the points USC has with some of their ranking. But I think USC ultimately dominates this game in the second half, winning the football game. I have USC winning this game, and I have them moving on. Now, last topic we have, we're going to talk quickly about the WNBA. I want to bring this up. This is Deladon. Last night, folks, we had a game between the Washington Mystics and the New York Liberty, right? And you had a situation where, and it's tough to talk about, folks, because when you talk about Deladon, first of all, let's give a shout out to Natasha Cloud, who had 33 points, 6 rebounds, 9 assists, 4 steals. That is an amazing stat line. Breanna Stewart, 27 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals for the New York Liberty. But we talk about this game, and we talk about Elaine Deladon. In the game last night, folks, she had 11 points. 11 points from Deladon. She was 0 of 6 from three-point land. The final score being, in overtime, the Liberty take down the Mystics 90-85. Folks, Washington had so many opportunities to win this game. Brittany Sykes had to steal late. Listen, folks, when you have 18 to 15 seconds left on the clock, Deladon must touch the ball. I understand she struggled all night long. But if your best player, Elaine Deladon, does not touch the basketball, you are missing the absolute boat when it comes to everything that you built with this team throughout the years. Yes, the Washington Mystics have a championship, but for Brittany Sykes to steal that ball and to not even get the ball out to Deladon, and you have Sabrina Nescu, who missed 2 free throws down the stretch, it was a sloppy game. But as I continue to say, Breanna Stewart is the leader of that basketball team. And this Liberty team, they better get their act together, because you look at it, right? Tonight, you got Connecticut, you got Minnesota. You got 2 scrappy teams, 2 very, very scrappy teams who I really like a lot. You look at Connecticut, right? The Connecticut Sun have been a team that have lost, 2 WNBA finals to Washington and to Vegas. They have been the ultimate consistency when it comes to the WNBA. They play Such good basketball. I put this graphic up for you guys. That's right. Tonight we have Connecticut and Minnesota. Connecticut were not able to win game 2. So even though they're the higher seed, even though they have a 27-13 record going against a 19-21 team, they have to go to Minnesota, the loud Minnesota. And people who have watched Minnesota over the years, the Lynx over the years, just understand just how crazy that Minnesota crowd can be. That Minnesota crowd, ladies and gentlemen, is no joke, and they're not going to play with the Connecticut Sun tonight. Now, you look at Connecticut, and you look at everything they've gone throughout the season. Now, I will say this. Brianna Jones, she's only 27 years old. She went to Maryland. She was averaging 15 points per game. She got injured in the 13th game of the season. She's been out. But the thing is with, the Connecticut Sun, they've been able to stay consistent. With Bonner averaging 17.4 points per game. Thomas averaging 15.5 points per game. Hayes averaging 12.1 points per game. The issue with the Connecticut Sun, they do have some age on them. And we get that because they're an older basketball team, but they bring experience. Now, you look at Minnesota. Collier, 21.5 points per game. McBride, 14.3 points per game. Minnesota is just a little bit of a younger team. They're trying. Diamond Miller, she's 22 years old. She's out of Maryland, another Maryland product. She is averaging, what is that? Let me make sure I have that stat correct. It's 12.1 points per game. You have a lot of players you have a lot of young players on Minnesota who are trying to make an impact, trying to get back to what they used to be as a team. And I'll say this about Minnesota. The next round, they play the Liberty. And it's going to be Las Vegas, Dallas, and you're going to have the Liberty. You're going to have the Liberty against either Minnesota or you're going to have the Liberty against Connecticut. I think that the Liberty playing Connecticut is important because they'll be more focused. If Minnesota wins, the Liberty are going to say, man, we can beat these girls. There ain't nothing. Minnesota is a scrappy team. For them to get to a game 3, to do what nobody else in these playoffs have done, that shows you a lot. This Minnesota team is coming in the next few years, folks. So for though they haven't qualified for the playoffs in the last 2 years, however, this team is coming. They're going to get a decent draft pick. Who knows if they can move up? It is going to be a very interesting game tonight. The game is on I believe it's on ESPN tonight. It's on ESPN at 8:00 Eastern. Make sure you tune in tonight. I may even do some live talking points during the game to talk about what's going on because this is such an important game. If Minnesota can somehow win this game and upset Connecticut, they've got a chance because again, they are a scrappy team. They're a team that continues to play hard. You look at everything that has gone on during the season. They've played hard throughout the season. And yes, they've taken some bad losses. We get that. And if we go back to when they played over the season, they beat Minnesota. They played the Mystics. How many times they played the Mystics? They played the Mystics once. They played them on May 5th. They beat them. They played them on June the 3rd. They beat them. Let's see if I can find some more games with them and the Mystics. They beat the Mystics. They beat them. I'm sorry. I'm talking about the Mystics. I mean the Liberty. I'm looking for the Liberty. I'm sorry. But still, if they had played the Mystics, they would have had the advantage because of the fact that they beat them. June 7th game was postponed. Let's see if we can find some other links. And all right. They beat the Liberty on July the 28th, 88-83. Let's see here. Let's make sure we get through the schedule. Okay. They've only played them once, which is, they lost to them on August the 26th, 111-76. So basically, and they also lost to them August the 4th, 76-66. So they beat them once and lost twice. So, you look at the Liberty, and the Liberty have played very tough against Minnesota. So it's going to be interesting whoever wins this game tonight. It's going to be interesting whoever is able to get through this game tonight. Because like I said, it's going to be a scrappy game. And I will let you know, I'll go through real quick and see if I can pull up Connecticut against the Liberty. So Connecticut actually lost to the Liberty this game in September, 89-58. They lost to Liberty 95-90 in August. And let me make sure that I can see if I can bring up everything else Is that it? They also lost to them 89 to 81. Let's see. They lost to them 81 to 65 in May, and they beat them May the 10th, 63 to 57. So basically what I'm saying is this. Whoever comes out of tonight's game is going to have to bring their A game against the Liberty, because here's the point that everybody needs to understand about the Liberty, right? Sabrina Ionescu is not the key. She can play hard all she wants. Breanna Stewart, if Breanna Stewart decides to go off, if Breanna Stewart decides that she wants to take over a basketball game, trust me when I tell you, folks, she will be able to take over the basketball game. I watched her in the WNBA Finals years ago. It was like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. She dominated. She's the best player on the floor. Easily the best player on the floor. You look at Sabrina Ionescu. She only averages, 17 points per game? Breanna Stewart's averaging 23 points per game. Vandershoot, 10.5 points per game. She's a veteran. She's 34, but she knows what to do on the basketball court. You look at Laney. She's 29. She's able to average 12.8 points per game. You got Jones, who's in the middle. She's 6'6". She's 29 years old. She averages, let me make sure I have that stack back, 11.9 points, 11.3 points per game. So it's all going to be predicated on what the Liberty are going to do in the next round. Are they going to take their opponent lightly, or are they going to be the ones to start the engine fast? Because we all know that it's going to probably be Aces against Liberty. But if the Liberty and the Aces don't handle their business next round, trust me, Dallas is ready to ascend. Dallas is ready to upset the Las Vegas Aces. And again, I'll say it again, the Minnesota Lynx are a scrappy bunch. They're 19-21, but they are ready to take the bull by the horn. So Connecticut better be ready. And then the Liberty better be ready, because the Minnesota Lynx, especially tonight, when you get them, I just challenge anybody. Tune in tonight, ESPN, 8 p.m. Check out that Minnesota crowd. It is the best crowd, one of the better crowds in sports. So, yep, that's what I say about that. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I'll get a comment from Darrell Owens. Mystics Liberty series can be a good one. It was a good one. The series is now over. It was a good one, but unfortunately, Elaine Deladon couldn't step up to the plate. 0 of 6 from three-point land. Only 11 points. She struggled the entire series. When Natasha Cloud has 33 points, you got to get it done. You wasted Natasha Cloud's great stat line, but it's all good. We will see the Washington Mystics next year, possibly without Deladon. She's an unrestricted free agent. So, and like I said, there is a lot of good talent coming to the WNBA draft. And let me let you guys know, I will be covering the WNBA draft here very soon. Legacy Mega Sports Network. Hopefully we can get deep into the WNBA draft and bring you guys a mock as well. Guys, thank you very much. Guys and ladies and gentlemen, kids, dogs, cats, whatever you all are out there. Thank you very much for checking in to Rob Johnson Sports Show episode 25. I will be back with you guys hopefully next Monday night for episode 26. So hopefully I'll be back with you guys next Monday night at 11:30 as we talk some Monday Night Football and we do Monday Night Raw review. That'll be the only thing we'll talk about next Monday night. It's Raw review and then the 2 Monday Night Football games. Guys, you have a great day. See you next time.